When does it make sense to do a midterm rental? So I have quite a few consulting clients that either already own a property or are about to acquire one, and they are having trouble deciding between a long-term unfurnished rental and a midterm rental. So to make decisions around this, they need estimates on how much the furniture costs, what they can expect to pay with a midterm rental, how to think about the utilities, etc. Is it worth it? And just as a note, about 30% of my consulting calls actually decide not to go forward with a midterm rental and decide to pursue another route. So it's not always the answer. We're very excited about midterm rentals. That's what we actually know. And just as a point of clarification, a midterm rental is a 30+ day furnished rental. And the reason why people are excited about the midterm space is that some people already had short-term rentals that they were happy with, and for whatever reason, they decided to stop doing them. So that might be that it was a lot of work, whereas a midterm rental is not nearly as much work. Or maybe their city came in and had regulation, and because of that regulation, they had to change their rental model. If that's true for you, please drop it in the comments, because I think it's helpful to instruct people about why you're here and why you're thinking about a midterm rental and why you're excited for it. So that is one reason for it. The second is just the money versus work ratio. So the amount of work that you put in is similar to a long-term rental, meaning that it's kind of a set it and forget it. People come in for a much longer period of time, and they're much more independent than your typical short-term renters. Short-term vacation renters can be very demanding at times. So these midterm renters come in, they act like long-term renters, and then the amount of money that you get is elevated. Want to know about the amount of money you can expect? The first video in this series is about that, but we will also cover it in this video. So those are really the reasons why people are excited about midterm rentals and why they're talking about them. And then people are also talking about traveling nurses and talking about traveling nurses as a tenant pool. That often is how people are introduced to this model. And if you want more information on that, there's a video for that as well here. I'll also drop all of these video links into the description. So if you want to continue to watch this and not be distracted, you can just go into the description after and see those videos. Let's talk about the agenda for this video. So this video is going to be a review of my past 5 clients in 5 different states. So I'm a consultant that co-hosts, and I get people tenants. I set those tenants. And so we're going to look at what those tenants actually paid versus what the third-party data says people would have made in those areas if they had rented long-term unfurnished. So that's the data set that we're going to look at. And then this video is going to be broken into 2 parts. One, the questions you should be asking yourself when you're trying to decide if a long-term rental makes more sense than a midterm rental. And 2, we're just going to look at the hard data. So let's get into it. All right. The first question is, how much more do you need to make a midterm rental worth it for you? That is a surprisingly difficult sentence to say. Anyways, we can talk about it, but I can't answer that for you, because certain people, money is worth more or less to them. So some people are not going to be excited about however much it is more an hour because they have other side gigs or they have jobs that make that not really worth the effort. Now, again, the beauty of a midterm rental is that it's not a ton of effort, but you need to decide how much more do I need to make a month to put about 10 to 15% more effort into the rental, because that answer is going to be different for different people. All right, second, how much is the furniture going to cost? And can you make that up in 18 months or less, with the difference between what the midterm rental makes you versus what the long-term rental makes you? And the cost to furnish a studio is different than the cost to furnish like a 4-bedroom. And if you want some quick numbers on what it costs to furnish a studio versus a 4-bedroom, etc., you can go to my midterm rental shop on Amazon, and you can plug and play different furniture items depending on the size of your property. Amazon will calculate it for you, and then you'll have a good sense of like a studio would cost this, a 4-bedroom would cost that. Good way to get some baselines around what it will cost to furnish your particular place. All right, the third question you need to ask yourself is, what is your vacancy rate going to be? So I messed up my audio here. What you care about is that my occupancy rate is 92%, and for investors, I tell them 80%, so that if there's a surprise, it's a pleasant surprise. So for that reason, I tell people to do an 80% occupancy rate. This would be an absolute worst case scenario. You should always be able to get booked. It's just a matter of marketing and pricing, but almost all places can rent, and there is a tenant for everyone. Side note on this, similar to when I'm making videos for TikTok or YouTube, one of the influencers on there that I watch to get educated talks about the fact that if you put something out and it doesn't get a lot of views, it's just because the algorithm hasn't figured it out yet. Eventually, the right audience will find you and they'll start watching you. And it's just that the algorithm hasn't figured it out yet. But there is actually an audience for everyone. And it's the same thing for rentals. There is a rental for everyone. So if you are very economically focused, and you don't care about luxury, you don't care about the bells and whistles, you kind of a stripped down, minimalistic property because you personally didn't want to pay a lot to get that property ready, well, there's a tenant that values that as well. And same thing on the reverse. If you care more about an aesthetic and experience, there's a tenant that will pay more for that. All right. And then the fourth question that you want to ask yourself is, how much are the utilities going to cost you? This is different for everyone again, but a tip for how to find this is just to call your utility company and say, I have a 4-bedroom. I estimate 4 people will be staying at it. Can you send me a report for what the average utility costs are for my area per month for the utilities? And then that will give you an idea of what your utility expense will be depending on the month. All right, before we get into the data, here's the me asking you favors portion of this video. So one, if you're liking this video, if you're finding that list of questions or any of the recommendations in those questions helpful, please like this video. 2, subscribe if you want notifications every time I produce content or you want to follow me. And number 3, book consulting if you have specific questions that you need answers for, or if you are interested in the Hold My Hand package, which is a package that supports you through your first midterm rental, where we work one-to-one. I don't have a team, you work directly with me. Okay, number 2, let's get into the data. So first, what the host got paid. On average, the people that I have consulted for have made $4,376.91 on their first midterm rental. Second, the average rental number for a long-term unfurnished rental is $2,909.50. And just to be clear, the 5 properties that I pulled for the Airbnb money are the same 5 properties that I pulled to get that average of $2,909.50. So it is averages for those 2 different data sets. Now, the difference between what they made on Airbnb at $4,376.91 and what they could have gotten as a long-term unfurnished, $2,909.50, the difference between those numbers is $1,467.41. However, this is also for 43 days, so we need to look at that on the daily rate and extrapolate. It is an average, and it's going to be different depending on your location and the size of your property. So while this number is an average and serves as a baseline, just know you're going to need to apply a formula to get to your own number. So the average monthly difference is $1,057.90 between a long-term unfurnished rental and a furnished rental. And again, that is on the monthly level. Okay, that's it. This is the second video in my midterm rental data series. So if you want more information and more data on midterm rentals, check out the 3rd video in this series, or the 1st if you haven't seen that one yet.